Everybody, Craig Shacklett here with a special Casino Innovators interview. We've got Zach Brownson here. He's from Houseway Gaming, and he just won the Best New Game Award at Richard Marcus's American Table Game Protection Conference, where there's a lot of great games that came out, and I know it was a heated battle, but Zach, you came out on top with Double for More Blackjack. So first of all, congratulations.
Thanks, Craig. Appreciate it.
Now, why don't before we get into the background, how you came up with the game, maybe you can kind of show us how Double for More works.
Yeah, absolutely. So the name's the game in this business. So Double for More takes your typical double down in blackjack and lets you do it for more. So in this game, you can double down for up to 3 times your bet, and you can do it more often. So kind of like that Spanish 21 rule where you can draw any number of cards, any hand total, and even after a split, you can do that in Double for More as well.
That sounds fun. Yeah, please.
Switch here and show you a hand or two real quick. All right, so we get transported to the blackjack table. We have our bet out, and just like typical blackjack, we can play a hand. So here, typical 10 versus 7. This is your typical double down hand. In this case, you could double down, triple down, or quadruple down for a total of 3 times your.
I want to quadruple down.
So 19 there. Dealer has 13, too many. So just like regular blackjack, you won, only you won more.
I like it.
I'll show you one more hand. All right, so here a player has a 6. So typically you're going to hit 6 against a 2. So the player will ask for a card. Now we have 11. So now we have that 3-card total that in regular blackjack you can't double on. In this game, Double for More, you can. So the player will once again double for up to 3 times, and they can do less if they want to. It's totally up to the player. Get that card. Well, not the card we're looking for, but the player's still in it. Dealer has 10, 22. So this is the take back in this game, is if the dealer has 22. Instead of games like free bet where the dealer, all bets will push and you don't win anything, in this game you still win half. So the player is still getting paid twice what they initially bet for a winning hand. And that's really it. We just saw pretty much everything in Double for More.
I love it. So just for folks that maybe aren't familiar with kind of the vernacular of table games, so the take back would be kind of a rule that makes it a little bit different than blackjack, that takes some of the, I guess, edge, gives a little bit more back to the casino, since obviously being able to double for more is weighs things for the player.
Right. So if you just had the Double for More on the game, this game would have a huge player advantage, and casinos wouldn't be allowed to offer it because everyone would win too much money. So you have to take it back a little bit, to make it a fair game for both sides.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, why don't you walk me through the background? Because I think this game, one, it's super easy to understand. That can always be with new games. The hardest part is if a player's walking up, they need to be able to understand it quick. Because if it takes 5 minutes to explain it, their eyes are crossed and they're walking over to play blackjack or something they're familiar with. So yeah, walk me through, how did you come up with Double for More?
Right. So I was actually training a staff for a similar game I have out in Michigan. And it has kind of the same concept where you can put more money down on strong hands. And one of the staff there was like, oh, it's like you can double for more. And it's kind of one of those moments where you pause and I'm like, why didn't I think of that? So I kind of shelved that idea for a little bit. And then, earlier this summer, I was sitting on that and it was still running around in my head, and I was like, that's a game. Like, players know, from blackjack, you're going to hear the term double for less. And players want to double down for less. I was like, this flips that. It's easy. You know exactly what the game is from the name. Like you said, there's no explaining. You've got one sentence, for the dealer to be able to explain a game to a player. In this game, you don't even need to do that. You can see the name. Players go, oh, I think I know what that is. Walk up to the table and, oh, I'm right. I can double down for more.
I like it. It reminds me of the Eagles documentary where Glenn Fry of the Eagles was riding in the car and somebody's like, "Life in the Fast Lane, baby." He's like, "Oh, I love that name." And he put it back and he ended up writing the song "Life in the Fast Lane" based on a catchy phrase. So you kind of had the same thing. you're basically a rock star, coming up with hearing a cool phrase, coming up with a game from it. So, all right, so you had this concept, all right, double for more. Then how do you start walking through different scenarios to like make it a game? Because I imagine the current iteration of double for more wasn't the first one. So how do you start like testing out different scenarios, testing out the math? What was that process like?
Right. So fortunately for me, I have a background in math and computers, so I'm able to kind of, simulate the game of blackjack and, figure out the right strategy and make the math work there. So I had a ballpark idea of, what the math should be to make it to work. And I was actually very fortunate on the game. Usually a lot of us developers, we work on stuff and you have to keep working and working to get it right. And this is like the only game I didn't have to do that. This was kind of like the one-hit wonder. I had this idea and, the math worked out great. So we ran with it.
Okay. So the half pay on 22, like that was kind of out of the box here. I think this will work. And sure enough, you crunched the numbers and it did.
Right. Because you look at the blackjack games on the market today beyond your typical blackjack. You have blackjack switch, you have free bet, now you have double down madness, and they all use what's called a push 22, where if the dealer busts with 22, you don't win anything. So I wanted something better for the player. I wanted players to still win. So I've been sitting on this idea where, you can let players still win, we'll pay them a little less in this situation. But what's nice is, players are used to it. They're used to these games where you don't win anything. So I can sell it to players. Hey, you still win in this game. And it's easy for the dealers who are already trained to look for those 22s. So it's kind of a win-win for everyone involved.
And when you brought up a good point, when you're developing a new game, one part is like, all right, well, players like it, but the second part is training, right? You need to make sure dealers can learn it and not have costly errors that will swing the favor back to the player. Maybe walk through like when you're developing a new game, how do you think about it from the training perspective?
Right. So that's a good point, because it's a weird market because there's actually three customers. Like the players have to love the game. The dealers have to, be able to deal it well and learn it quickly and hopefully make some money on the end. And then, the back of house, the operators, they don't want any problems. But particularly for the dealers, you want stuff easy, and it goes back to familiar. If it's familiar for the players, it's going to be familiar for the dealers. So we took all like existing rules that, the dealers know, like we talked about the push 22, they're familiar with that. This is just half, you pay half. The double for more, that's on the players. The players are the ones who actually put more money out there. So all the dealer has to do is just check the amounts to make sure it's right. So we keep it nice and simple. And hopefully at the end of the day, when the players are winning more, they're winning those bigger bets, they're going to tip the dealer a little bit more. And then, everyone involved is going to like the game.
Okay. So you had the idea in your head, you work out the math. Okay, it works. Then what's the next step? How do you make sure this game actually flows well and it's fun to play?
Right. So that's kind of the cool thing about my story is I like to get my games in front of as many people as possible. So I started out in this business about 4 or 5 years ago, right at the start of the pandemic. Other people's COVID hobbies were, baking bread out in the garden, all that crazy stuff we all did. And mine was making games. This canceled my annual Vegas trip to March Madness. So I used this time to, hey, let's have a Vegas night. Let's deal blackjack at home. And kind of quickly realized that, after a while, blackjack gets a little boring. How do we spice it up? So from that, I started, making my own games and, getting people around who are, stuck at home from all parts of the country, to try it out. And I still do that today. I've got a group of playtesters from Washington State in the Northwest down to Florida in the Southeast, from all across the country, who I can actually get real feedback. And they're the kind of people who aren't gonna just butter up, oh, it's the best game ever. Like if I make something that's boring, I'm gonna hear about it real quick. So I get that feedback, and you get that impression of whether a game's gonna be good or not.
Now, I can imagine that's pretty intimidating, or I think a lot of people would be intimidated. You weren't in the casino business, right? And then you came up with this great game, and you're dealing blackjack and your variations to friends over Zoom. Like when you came up with a game that was fun, how did you make the decision? You know what? I want to get this in a casino. And what was that journey like for you?
Right. So I had a game a couple years ago, and kind of like we talked about, it started with a name. It was called Pick a Hand Poker. And so I had that name I liked, and I built a game around it and ran a whole bunch of prototypes around, my play testers. And at some point I was like, hey, I think this is something, how do I commercialize it? And fortunately I had one friend in the industry. He provided a lot of feedback on my early games, that they weren't ready. But this one he liked. So he's like, hey, I think this is something, get it to ready for market, go get all the math reports, get all the patents, all the, game protection stuff you need. And I can help you get a pitch for this game. And so that was kind of the quick learning curve. I went to a big name property in Vegas for my first ever pitch. Really didn't know the industry, didn't know a lot. And, they liked the game well enough that they sent it to one of their other properties to take a deeper look at it. They didn't move forward, which was a blessing in disguise because the game wasn't ready. It had problems, but it was such a good learning opportunity. And it made all of my games since then better. So it's one of those things that was a blessing in disguise.
And so this is a new concept to me. So the pitch, so you're up there like, all right, here's your time with, some bigwig, VP of table games or whatever it was. Yeah, maybe you could walk us through that. So is it like you had your table mat printed out and it's just, there's a room full of people and you're just set to deal and answer questions, or what's that pitch like?
Yeah, so it's kind of weird because you see all these beautiful casinos and then you walk in the back of the house and it's a little different, right? I felt like I was in my old college, like engineering hall again, stuff's dated, but it was cool. You walk down and you're in an office with, one or two other people who are there to look. My first time I wasn't prepared. I had pieces of paper I'd laminated with little mini layouts on them. And I remember like there wasn't room on his desk to, even put those. And I didn't want to go like clear stuff off his desk. So I'm just kind of putting it on the corner so he can see it. And it's evolved. I've gotten better. I have little portable layouts I can lay out now and it looks a lot better. But basically you have, 15, 20 minutes to pitch your game, to, show them some hands, explain it, get their, impression of it. If it's not good, you won't get that much time. They'll, probably show you the door, but if they like it, they'll give it an honest look.
That's cool. And did you get the impression that you were the 10th one that week, or is it something that's like, they don't evaluate new games too often?
Right. They don't evaluate games too often. Like I had a connection to get the pitch. Like it's hard. You have, like any other new business, you have to go build a network. You have to get to know people. But there's operators in this country that are willing to look at new stuff. There's a handful of them. They go to this, table game show you talked about at the beginning of the call. And that's where you kind of make these connections for those who are willing to try it out. And then once you have the data, then you can go into, the rest of the country. Hey, I have this game that works well. Here's proof that it works well. Do you want to give it a shot?
Got it. Okay. So you got the game, you get patents on it, you pitch it. What you want to have happen is a casino says, you know what, let's do it. And then what happens? So do they generally say like, all right, you got 1 month, let's see how it goes? Or what's a kind of, if you get that at bat, what does it look like?
Right. So it varies greatly. So some places you might get as few as 3 weeks. I know a couple games that were, just very quick. If the game didn't do well right away, or if it had major problems, it's going to be gone. I think most places are going to give you around 3 months to see if it's anything. As long as it doesn't like tank in that 3 months, I think you can usually get a little bit longer. But really, it's going to take about a year before I think whether you can get a lot of those repeat players, whether it's going to be anything. But you'll get clues early on.
Got it. Okay. And the math part, you said you're an engineer, you're very familiar with math. But I assume the casino isn't just going to take your word on it. Like, do you generally have to bring it to a third party that verifies the odds, or what's what's that like? Because at the end of the day, they care about their hold and hands per minute and how much theoretical are we going to make per hour with this game. So what's that like, presenting the math to the casino?
Right. Yeah. No one wants to see Zach math. I'll show them sometimes anyways. But yeah, it's kind of a two-step process. There's a lot of really good independent mathematicians that I've worked with before. And so they'll kind of do a preliminary report that I commission them to do of the game. And, they'll come up with a house edge and all the numbers the operators want to see. And from that, I'll send it to one of the major test labs. There's 2 in the country that basically are approved or like recognized for their game approvals. So you'll get it approved twice by 2 independent parties. And then you take that math to the operators and they'll trust that.
Very cool. Okay, so now you've got your new game. Obviously a huge deal that you just won this award, right? Against stiff competition. There are a lot of other games there. You guys won it. So what does that come with? And it, like, besides the trophy and the be able to say you won the best new game, what else do you get with that?
Right. So there was a sponsor of the tournament or of the contest, Firekeepers, which is actually where my other game I have out on the floor right now is. So I've got a good relationship with them. So yeah, we'll get this game out at Firekeepers. And then just from the show, I met a lot of great table games directors that have reached out to me and want to place the game. So I'll get a couple placements in California, a couple in Minnesota, and then still talking with some other properties across the country on it. So it's going to get some traction, hopefully come to a part of the country where people can play it.
That's awesome. And so you said Firekeepers, there's a couple more. For folks that want to find out where they can play Double for More and like keep tabs on it and hope that they'll come to a local casino for them, how do they learn more about Double for More and get a hold of you and track how the game's doing?
Right. So my website, housewaygaming.com, I'll have links up there and you'll be able to see where all of these games are placed, when they get placed. So it's just rolling out now. So it's going to take some time for all the, jurisdiction approvals before the game gets rolled out, but we should get in all these places by the end of the year, hopefully much sooner. But it takes some time.
Well, I played it at the show. It was a ton of fun. If you are around Firekeepers or any of the other properties that this will be rolling out at, definitely go play a little bit. It's definitely more exciting than normal blackjack. And hey, you can't beat doubling for more. It's nice when you get that 11, especially on the scenario you played out where you got that third card 11. It's like, wow, you still have a chance to not just double down, but quadruple down. So love the game. Great job, Zach.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Craig.